Coming up on Skeeter Bass Champs.
There he is. Came right back and got it. There's one. Here we go. Gotcha. You know, in cold water, they get red lips. Why? Because in cold water, they get red lips.
Come on, big boy. There we go, boy. Good job.
In 1997, Chad Potts and Jeff Welch created the Bass Champs Tournament Organization, hosting amateur fishing events throughout the state of Texas. And when Skeeter Boats came aboard as the title sponsor, Bass Champs became the largest team tournament circuit in the nation, boasting the richest guaranteed payback in grassroots competition. So if you love bass fishing and you want to have a great time competing in the biggest team tournaments and big fish competitions, it's time to join us at Bass Champs.
Welcome to the Skeeter Bass Champs television series. I'm your host, Fishburne. And when you think about bass fishing, you think about all of the tricks of the trade, the behind the scenes, the who knows what on how to catch more bass. Well, on today's episode, I'm gonna visit a lake I've never seen before. I'm gonna try to break it down, and I'm gonna bring some techniques to the forefront that I think you'll like. We're gonna talk about the conditions. It's winter, the water's cold. Will the fish bite? I think if we use the right techniques, they'll bite. We're about to find out. Bass Champs starts now. I want to talk a little bit about the conditions today. It's overcast. It's wintertime. The air temperature is in the high 40s, low 50s. The water temperature matches the air temperature because remember, at night, when the temperatures are consistent, that's what's going to happen to your surface temp. So when you have temperatures 50 and below, typically you want to slow down. Your mind tells you the fish go deep. Not necessarily true. You're going to have to figure that out based on the reservoir or the river that you're fishing. So we came out, and I did a zigzag pattern with the boat. I zigged from shallow to deep with the trolling motor, and I fished. I'm trying to locate a general depth, and what I've found so far is that we're seeing more bait activity in shallow water. Does that mean I'm going to catch all of the fish shallow? Absolutely not. But we're going to fish for an hour or two and zigzag and watch your electronics and try to figure out where the bait is, because that's where the bass are going to be. If you don't see bait, what are you looking for? Cover, specific cover in the body of water that you're fishing. And look what the cover is. It's ledge rock in close proximity to the bank, and then out in the open you have a lot of standing timber. So with time, I'll dial this in and hopefully find a fish or two, and then I'll establish a basic pattern, and I'll repeat, and I'll repeat, and hopefully catch and catch. There's one. Here we go. Uh-huh. Right. So here's what we have, guys. The smallest little plastic. Let's get him unhooked. All right. A little release. The cash out. Let's take a look at this bait right here. Cash out with the mushroom head, which is a half-headed jig. Very exciting. I'm to you. All right, so we're working, we're getting it. This is good. Very good, thank you.
Pretty neat.
Skeeter Bass Champs with Fishburne is brought to you by Skeeter, eat, sleep, fish. Yamaha, reliability starts here. Berkeley, catch more fish. Power Pole, swift, silent, secure. Techron, expect more. James Wood Motors. Visit our family at James Wood in Decatur.
Here you go, Nate. Got a fish on, and he swam right into a tree, it looks like. Here he comes, here he comes, here he comes. Listen, when you've got the light tippet on, or the leader, you don't want to overpower these fish. You want to just take your time. If you get on a snag, get in a precarious situation, just slow down. And a lot of times, if you just give them a little bit of slack, they'll swim right out of the cover. All right, cash out. Just cashed in. Another 3-inch bait. Right there. Check this out. Oh, man, those hooks. Super strong. Nice little bass. Get an actual color on this bait. It is margarita red. Margarita red. Great little bait. Same size as the bait fish, 3 inches. Great little bait. Try it again. Here we go. There we go. Did you notice the way I set the hook right there? That's critical. You simply want to drag the bait into the fish. You don't want to set the hook. You don't want to get all crazy doing these giant swinging hook sets. When the fish loads on it, you're going to feel him, man. The braid, we talk about how sensitive this stuff is. You're going to feel the fish, you're going to tight line him, and you're going to just sweep into him, soft and slow. All right, I'm gonna hold this right here. Yes, sir. Couldn't stand the general. And remember, the reason I picked this color, because it simulates a shad, right? Anything with that white color on it is usually the best when there's a lot of shad in the lake. Come here. Hey. Here we go. Gotcha. All right. Let's take a look at the general. Exposed hook again. Because remember, I'm fishing. There's cover, there's spotty wood, and there's big boulders, but primarily this is clear. And if I start getting hung, I'm gonna go weedless. Fish is about, maybe 1.5 pounds. Really? He's gotta be 3. And the release. Guys, take a look at this bank right here. This is one section where I'm seeing about 50 yards with a lot of debris on it. Old root balls and a little bit of timber sticking up here. Looks like really a fishy area. So if you're a novice or an intermediate angler, you definitely want to go with a weedless bait here. If you get hung, and I just feel like I just stuck in the side of that wood, I can load the rod tip and pull the line away from the reel, and it's gonna basically do a ricochet. It's gonna send a loop down the line and hit the bait like that and pop it free. It works probably 8 out of 10 times. In wood, super sharp hook, not so much, but in the rock, it will. Oh, okay, I swung and I missed right there. All I felt was a tiny little tick, and it was because I had a tight line to the lure. See if I can get him to come back. Yep, there he is. Came right back and got it. Cooler water, if the fish don't feel the bait, they don't feel you, a lot of times, think about this. You're sitting there and you've got a French fry in your face. You are gonna take that French fry, and as soon as you get ready to bite it, your buddy grabs it from you. You're not going anywhere. You're waiting for another French fry. That's what this guy did. He was just waiting for the general to come back. Gotcha. It is so much fun catching bass on the light tackle with the braided line. Let's put him back here. Bonk. And this right here, not only is it fun to fish, you can cast it a mile with braided line. It outcasts fluorocarbon and monofilament by at least 10%. The knot strength is better with the braided line. We have, this is the Berkeley spider wire. Oh, what a lovely color. Why in the world would anybody pick a color like this? I'll tell you, because it is common sense to watch your line. Not only are you going to be able to see any line movement, but you'll know exactly where your line is. If the wind's blowing, you can follow it, and you can see water depth and clarity based on this color. Bulk spool. Is a bulk spool of line necessary? No, it is not. This is expensive stuff, but it's fantastic, and it outlasts monofilament and fluorocarbon. Get this, 50 to 1. What are you talking about, fish? I'll tell you right now. If you spool braided line and you fish with any regularity, if you're using monofilament or you're using fluorocarbon, you will change your line 50 times before one change of this. So guess what? Economically, it's a deal. Now, let's talk about the knot that we use when we take our fluorocarbon. This happens to be 10-pound clear fluorocarbon, trilene. I like it. It goes well with this spider wire braid. I use a uni knot. And the key here is practice, practice, practice. Don't get out on the water, get your phone and start trying to learn how to tie a knot. When you're at home and you're bored, learn to tie the uni knot. That's the best knot that I found to attach fluorocarbon to braid when you're fishing with this type of tackle. Now we need a fish. I worked my way down that 50-yard stretch where I've got a lot of vertical rock ledges, and now you can see right down here it runs out. Well, I'm also getting really, really shallow. So I'm gonna back out of this area, and you can see I've got individual targets out here. Guys, bass prefer, in my opinion, more of an individual target than a whole bunch of targets all mixed in together. For some reason, they'll get on a single piece of wood or an individual rock. That's why brush piles are so important. Man-made brush piles, if you put them in a lake, they almost always work because the bait goes to them and the bass go to them, and they like a single piece of cover. So these are vertical pieces of old trees that are sticking up. And if I take this bait and I fire it, a lot of times I won't cast right on top of the bait, I'll cast past it. And then I'll wind it on the surface right up next to it and let it fall vertically. And so many times when you do that vertical presentation, the bass can't stand it and they just inhale and you've got him. You see that hook set? Just bring it right into him. Don't get carried away. Loose drag. I keep mine probably a little bit looser than most guys do. You can always put your left hand on the spool when you set the hook. Oh yeah, cash out, strikes again. We're gonna talk now specifically about the baits that we're using. Let him go. We're gonna talk about 3 specific styles here. 3 of these baits that you're gonna need in your tackle box if you're gonna finesse fish. This is a cash out. It's a little minnow style bait. It's got this ribbed bottom right here on the side. It's just for texture. They say that the bass will hang on to it a little bit longer. And then it's got this arrow tail. That's just so when it's going through the water, it gives it more of a glide feature from left to right. Really like this bait. It can be fished a multitude of ways. It can be drop shotted. It can be straight line like we're doing today. And guys, it works for all species of fish. Largemouth, smallmouth, spotted bass. It'll catch crappie. It'll catch white bass. It'll catch drum. If it swims, the cash out will catch it. Then we jump over here to the General. The General is a soft stick bait. Usually you fish this thing weightless, and you can Texas rig it or you can wacky style it. And don't get me wrong, it's one of the best baits in the business. Catches lots of numbers of fish. But the way we're rigging it on that jig head, it gives it a minnow profile. And remember, when it comes through the water, it's just a darting action. It has very limited tail action, but when you see a bait fish in the wild, Is he swimming? Most of the time, no. They just sit there in the water column. And then we have this little guy, the hit worm. The hit worm is a fantastic drop shot bait. And you know what? We might drop shot, but this is working pretty well right now with our jig head. It's got the rounded tail. You can see the taper in the back of the worm, and that's so that the tail being thicker has more action, especially when the bait lands on the bottom and that tail will wave to those bass and say, come and get me. So pick a light, pick a dart. Here we go, 3 baits. I think it's gonna work well for you. Right there, dragging into them. All right, well, that's a nice one right there, guys. Look here, loosen the drag. Loosen the drag. When you spot the fish and you know he's over 4 pounds, back it down. There's no sense in getting in a hurry and losing a giant bass. They're not nearly as active when they're super cold like this. Gotcha. That is so much fun. Wow, look at this. Would you say he choked it? He's got it way on down. And when it's way down in there, you don't want to hurt the fish if it's in his gullet. So I'm going to give you a great technique to get this bait out. You need the line to be taut. So I'm going to pull it over here and put it in my other fingers and wrap it around so it stays taut. Then I'm going to take my index finger. Now if the fish's mouth isn't big enough, it's hard to do this, but I'm going to reach down in his mouth. As you can see, I can get my whole hand down there. And I'm putting my finger, my index finger, in the bend of the hook. And I'm taking my index finger and pushing the bait back, inside, and out. All right, get him back, get him back, get him back alive. Get in there. I'm sure that if you have used a uni knot to tie a leader to braided line, you hear, when you make a cast, the knot strip through the guides as it exits the rod tip. Why is that? It's because the uni knot is a fairly large knot. But here's what you can do. As soon as you finish tying the knot, you can take your scissors or your clippers and clip as close as you can to reduce any of the excess line sticking out on either side of the knot, and then you can put a drop of gel super glue. In about 20-25 seconds, when you cast through, you won't hear the sound of the knot go through nearly as much with super glue on it.
Skeeter Bass Champs with Fishburne is brought to you by Skeeter, eat, sleep, fish. Yamaha, reliability starts here. Berkeley, catch more fish. Power Pole, swift, silent, secure. Techron, expect more. James Wood Motors. Visit our family at James Wood in Decatur.
Just drag right into him. Guys, look at this bass right here. 50-degree water temperature. Gotcha. You know, in cold water they get red lips. Why? Because in cold water they get red lips. I've never really been able to figure it out. But there you go. Another beautiful bass. That fish is going to go over 2 pounds. We'll let him go. And I want you guys at home to remember that if you'll just build a box of 3 baits, you can have a drop shot worm, you can have a soft stick bait, and then you can have one of these little flat tail grubs. So I highly recommend it. All right, just a step back, drug right into him. Now guys, you see all this cover out here? If the fish are using this heavy, heavy cover and you get a fish down in that stuff, you're gonna break him off on that fluorocarbon. So if I know they're using that heavy cover, I will go to straight braid. I don't care if the fish can see it or not. If they're biting, you're gonna catch them anyway. All right, there we go. Another little chunky bass. What would you say? pound and 3/4, 2-pounder. The hit worm. This time it was the hit worm. And you can see that the worm's been torn up because of the fish. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get a pair of scissors, keep our jig head right there. We're gonna take it, we're gonna find where the damage ends. Right about there. You can also see it's discolored. That is all good, clean worm. We're gonna take our jig head, we're gonna re-rig. Go in the dead center, keep it straight in the center all the way through. And after you've done this a bunch of times, you'll realize exactly how far you need to go because you want the bait always hanging perfectly straight. Up over the keeper, up over the collar, slide it snug up against the head. And there's the rig right there. It's subtle and it is a fish catching machine. I had a great time showing you guys how to use more of a finesse technique to catch largemouth bass. The size of the bait doesn't matter. It's the conditions and the way you fish those baits that are gonna help you catch more. Fluorocarbon, braided line, spin and tackle. I'm Fishburne for the Skeeter Bass Champs Tournament Trail. We'll see you next time.
It's time now for Berkeley's best baits, the Power Jerk Shad. This truly versatile soft plastic jerk bait has an improved hook keeper for higher hookup ratio and can be fished weightless near the top of the water column or with insert weights to get down into that heavy cover. The Power Jerk Shad is a 5-inch bait available in 16 colors that big bass can't resist. And that's your Berkeley's best bait.
I can see a piece of wood right here, and I threw the bait in close proximity and I got hung. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna load the rod, I'm gonna load the tip, and then I'm gonna release it. And you can see that it does absolutely no good.